We all have problems and we all don't want them. Today we're going to be talking about design thinking, a problem-solving methodology that has been used for quite a while now and is still killing it in the problem-solving game. Stay tuned. My name is Lowell and I help teams to collaborate and solve complex problems. Here on the Art of Teams, we are talking about all things to do with collaboration, workshopping, problem solving, ideating, innovating, and just getting your teams better at doing what they do best. Today we're talking about design thinking. So what's design thinking? Design thinking is a methodology for solving problems, namely complex problems, in a human-centric way. Design thinking was popularized by Ideate, and I'm gonna leave some details in the description so you can check them out if you don't already know about Ideate. They're a popular design agency and they are really the hub of creativity and creative human-centric problem solving. Human-centric problem solving. So human-centric problem solving, what does this even mean? Now, let's take a check on this here. So when we think about issues, things don't really have issues, and things and situations don't have problems. It's people who have problems. And when we're seeking to solve a problem, we really need to look from a people perspective. We need to look from the perspective of the human who is having that problem. This is not the traditional way to solve problems. The traditional method involves everybody coming together in a room, putting their ideas out about what the issue is, and taking that issue as a standalone aspect and trying to solve that issue. Now, creating a solution for a problem does not necessarily solve the problem for the person who is experiencing the problem. And at the end of the day, it's the people who we want to solve the problems for, because it's they that are paying the money. It is they that will move on to another provider if we are not stacking up to their expectations. They will move their business elsewhere and their attention elsewhere if we do not satisfy their needs. So why don't we take greater care into understanding our customer, understanding the needs of the person who is experiencing the problem? This is something that design thinking does really well. And today we're going to go through the stages in design thinking, talking you through each of the elements of design thinking and how it comes together to solve problems for people. Design thinking has been used extensively in product development. Now, design thinking is being used more extensively across a range of different problems for a range of different industries. We're talking about services, we're talking about general problems that teams might be having, we are talking about experiences. Design thinking can be used in almost all aspects where people are involved. So let's get into it. What are the stages of design thinking? How do I go about actually doing this? Please don't forget to like this video if you're finding it useful, and please subscribe to my channel to get more videos like this coming straight into your inbox. The first stage of design thinking is the empathy stage. What does empathy mean? Empathy means that we really look into taking the perspective of the person who we're solving the problem for. And this means really getting to the crux of their experience and trying to put ourselves in their shoes. So the practical things that this involves is listening openly to the people who are having these problems, asking open-ended questions and getting their free, open, honest answers on their experiences. We can do this through interviewing. We can do this through observing people when they're using the product or service. We can also do this by becoming that person as much as possible for a day. Let me give you an example of this. Say, for instance, you want to design a service for people who are visually impaired. How would you go about getting information and really understanding the perspective of someone who is visually impaired? You can interview that person. You can interview this group of people, asking them open-ended questions to find out what their experiences are like in certain scenarios, their day-to-day activities, and so forth. You can also spend a day with them to see firsthand and really absorb from a non-biased perspective. It's really important that you go into this with a clear head, that you understand where your biases may come from, and to take in information as you see it. It's not what you perceive it to be, it is what you are actually seeing, and recording those observations for you to come back later and understand later on. Another thing that you can do is to be in the shoes of that person. So we're talking about visually impaired people. You may want to take some glasses and put Vaseline over the lenses while you go about some day-to-day activities to understand what it might feel like to be visually impaired and doing day-to-day activities. This really puts you in the shoes of the person who is at the heart of the experience, the people who are at the heart of the problem that you are trying to address or the solution that you are trying to build. Another example is if you're building products or services for children, for toddlers, for instance. These kids are super tiny, they're really short, and in navigating an experience, they're having a different perspective from you. So why not put a GoPro on the target market's bodies whilst they go about the experience? And then you can start to understand their own perspective, what they're seeing, what they're hearing, what they might be feeling based on their personal perspectives. Or you could, go to their height and look around. See what the world looks like, what the world feels like from their point of view. This is the heart of empathizing, really understanding what the person is going through from their own perspective, removing as much of your own bias and your own experiences and your own judgments from this as much as possible. Stage 2 is the definition stage, defining the problem. It's time to pull insights from all of the information, all of the data that you've gathered, the pictures you've taken, the records that you've taken, the recordings, the conversations, the videos, the experiences. Try to take these and build insights that are powerful, insights that will go on to inform defining the problem statement. Once you do that, you would have completed the second stage, which is defining the problem statement. This is the statement that this is the problem, this is the issue we are now going to tackle and find solutions for. The third stage is ideation. Ideation is the creative phase of design thinking. This is where we do brainstorming, and there are lots of different ways to do brainstorming, and I'll link it to a previous video that I did about 2 different ways that you can do brainstorming. In doing brainstorming, we're coming together and coming up with creative ideas that are related to the problem that we are trying to solve. Bringing a diverse range of people onto this brainstorm, people who have experience with the target market, people within the target market themselves, people who are designing for the target market. You pick the people who you need to be on the brainstorming session, and you come up with a flurry of ideas. You come up with a flurry of ideas that will form possible solutions for the problem statement at hand. The ideation phase is one of the fun parts of design thinking, and it allows our creative juices to flow, and this is where the rubber starts to hit the road in terms of imagination in terms of thinking of something new, something innovative. And so it's exciting for the participants, and it's a very exciting phase for the project. The next phase is prototyping. Now, prototyping involves building a rough model of the solution that we came up with within the ideation phase. You would have selected one of those solutions or a couple of those to move into building something that is tangible, something that you can take to users, potential users of your service, your experience, or your product to get feedback on. So this needs to be tangible. This needs to be something that they can actually utilize. And this is where a lot of businesses tend to fall down, because when we think of prototyping, we are thinking of a model that is almost perfect. We don't want to do that. We want to keep our prototyping rough for a few reasons. If you build a rough prototype, you don't have an incredible amount of attachment to that design or that possible solution, because you just haven't spent that much time on it. But the longer that you spend building out something that may not even go to market, is the closer you are to that as being a final product. And you may become more biased as time goes on and really fight to have this go to market or fight to have this built out properly because you are so close to it. So to avoid doing that and to save time and money, we do rough prototyping in design thinking. And rough prototyping means just taking whatever it is that you have to hand to build a solution or a frame of the solution that, as long as the user can use it, understand it, and it feels kind of real, then it is enough to get good feedback on. Now, a rough prototyping tends to start with sketches. So a blank sheet of paper, sketch what your idea could look like. And then it's a very high fidelity product. It's very, very rough and ready. And then we can make it and adapt it to suit the user for the next phase, which is the testing phase. One more thing before we move on to the testing phase. When it comes to rough prototyping, I like to start with sketching. Sketching can be a little bit daunting, and we'll do a video in the future about sketching and how to really make it fun, relax, and take the edge off. No one has to be an artist to do sketching. And what I like to do is to limit the time that people have to sketch their idea, so that the pressure that they feel with the time takes pressure off of the perfection, right? So they're able to just focus on the task at hand, and they don't feel embarrassed about how messy their sketch might be or how imperfect it might be. It's really important at this phase to remind people that we're not talking about perfection here. We're talking rough and ready. You have a very short amount of time to do it. If it looks perfect, you're spending time on the wrong things. Okay. Once we have our prototype, we move on to testing. User testing is one of the final stages in the design thinking process, and it is something that people tend to not feel that it's super important to do. And it is, because at the end of the day, it's the people who are using our product, people who are using our service, people who are experiencing our experience, right? It's important for us to get feedback from those people so that we know we are delivering the right thing. When you're testing, you have to be open to constructive feedback. You have to be open to people saying, yeah, I like that, but that really sucks. Get comfortable with that. It's better to get this feedback now so that you can iterate the prototype before going to market. It's much better to get negative feedback on a prototype that you spend a couple hours to do or an hour to do and then you'll be able to change it later on, than to get negative feedback on a final product or an alpha or a beta product that you've spent millions on. This part of the process is important. Make sure that you give enough time for testing, you have the right people who you are testing with, and that you don't take the feedback to heart, but make sure that you take it back to the product team to improve upon the prototype for another round of testing. if needed. Now, the last phase of the process is iteration. Iteration means going back to the point that is of most importance to the team now that you have done your first round of testing. Now, this may mean that it really depends what the feedback from the test is. If it's simply, it would be nice if this button was on the right side instead of the left side, then, and you got that with quite a few people, then you just need to go back to the prototyping phase and get the design team to shift that button, or you, for instance, if it's still very rough and ready, shift that button from the right side to the left side. However, if you go into testing and the users are just not connecting with the product, they don't like it, it's not working for them, then you may need to go back even further in the process to the ideation phase maybe, or maybe all the way back to the empathy phase to understand the users. Again, it really depends on what the testing results are, and this is why it's really important for us to pay attention to the testing to get this right. You may have to run through this entire process a few times before you're happy with the product, happy with the service, happy with the experience, and you can go out to building the actual thing. There are also other parts of design thinking. You have those stages, and there are a few other things that we need to think about, such as the desirability of what we're building. Do people actually want it? The feasibility of what we're building. Can it actually be built? Is this doable? And the viability of it. Should we be doing this, or should we hire other people? And do we have the expertise in-house and the resources to build this product? These are some of the questions that we need to answer as part of the process as well. So as you can see, design thinking is not some fluffy methodology that doesn't get things done. It takes problem solving and solution finding to the core of the person at the heart of the experience. The human, the customer. It, I feel, is the only way for us to solve problems. We need to think about it from a people perspective. It's not technology that are facing the problems. It's not the thing that you built that is facing the problem. It is the person. And the person is the one that has the money. Serve your people. There are lots of case studies out there of companies who have not gone through this process and ended up building really whack products or services that people don't want. And in your own experiences as well, you may have come across the product or service and you're like, who on earth came up with this idea? Why would they think that this is a good idea? That is an example of an example of not following the process and being human-centric. Because if you were, you would have a problem. You would have a solution that everybody wants, that people want to buy, that people want to use. And that's where you want to be. When it comes to projects, when it comes to products, when it comes to creating anything new, we want to make sure that we're doing it in the most effective way as possible. And we want to keep it human-centric. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel and connect with me in the comment section. Let me know if there are videos that you want to see. Just drop them down in there. If you want me to explain or go through anything new, just let me know. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.